Hi, thanks for listening to the Practicing Connection podcast. I'm Jessica, and my co-host Coral is here as well. Today, we're going to be talking about motivation again, and specifically, how the language we use can either drain us or energize us. We're exploring how shifting from I should to I get to can change the way we approach our professional roles. Hey, Coral, how are you?
Hey, Jessica, I'm doing really well, thanks. I'm quite excited about this conversation today because it builds on the practice we shared, I think, a couple episodes ago about motivation mapping. And that practice helps us step back and see whether we're being fueled more by extrinsic motivators like deadlines or recognition, or intrinsic motivators like purpose, values, and things of that nature. The practice we're talking about today, it's like the quick everyday version of that and helps us notice in the moment when we're running on shoulds and shift our energy to the get-tos.
I always like to say, don't should all over yourself. Is fine. Well, I love that. It sounds like motivation mapping is the reflection piece, and this kind of reframe is the habit that you can carry into your daily life.
Yeah, 100%. And it is just a really practical, real-time way to reconnect with that intrinsic motivator. And it's just something that you can have in your hip pocket to access on the fly when you need it.
Yeah. Well, as always, we'd love to hear from our listeners. Drop us a note at practicingconnection@oneop.org and let us know how you've caught yourself saying I should and turned it into I get to. Let's dig into this should to get to reframe. Coral, can you walk us through what it looks like as a practice?
Absolutely. So even if it sounds a little cliche, the words that we use with ourselves, they truly do matter. And when we say I should or I have to, we're typically operating out of extrinsic motivation. So external expectations, pressures, obligations, and that language makes these tasks or can make these tasks feel heavy and draining. And when we shift to an I want to or I get to, we're reframing the same task in terms of intrinsic motivation, things like purpose, meaning, or growth. And then suddenly, like magic, the task can feel a little bit lighter, intentional, or more connected to our values. And I do want to say, I don't want this to come off as like, oh, there's a silver lining in everything, because there are some really heavy things or just sort of mundane, root things that we move through on a day-to-day. But really connecting these back to the benefit and the value and the purpose is really where this practice holds its power.
Yeah, what I'm noticing here and what you're saying is that it's not about pretending, right? It's not saying I get to instead of I have to. It's not about pretending just to move through your day. It actually is about trying to connect it back to something that matters to you.
100%. 100%. Yes. Thank you for saying that, Jess.
So tell us about the practice. Let's go through it.
Absolutely. So like I said, it's very simple and straightforward. Step one is identifying your shoulds. A great place to start is your to-do list. So for instance, if you're just getting in touch with this practice at the start of your day, you can jot down 3 tasks that are on your to-do list that you've been thinking of as shoulds or have tos. So for example, I have to answer these emails, or I really should prepare for this meeting. From there, step 2 is reframe these shoulds or have tos with get to. And you're going to take each one and rewrite as I get to, but tie it back. And this is really the crux of this, is you're going to tie it back to something meaningful, like one of your key values, for instance, or something you enjoy. So a reframe of those 2 examples from step 1 would be, instead of I should answer these emails, I get to support people who are counting on me for my input and expertise. Instead of I have to prepare for this meeting, I get to help shape decisions and share my expertise and make an impact. From there, step 3 is just notice the energy shift, however slight it may be. So you want to say that reframe version out loud. Again, doesn't change the task, but it changes the energy that you're bringing to it and you're giving it. And from there, step 4, carry forward. See if you can use this throughout your day, and notice when you may catch yourself saying should or have to, and just try pausing, reframing, and see how that may change your perspective, even in the slightest of angles.
Yeah, I really like how simple that is. It makes me think about a time very recently that I had a big deadline for a presentation I was giving. I kept telling myself, okay, I have to get this done. I have to get this done. I need to work on this. And it felt really stressful. If I had kind of reframed it as I get to share important information with my colleagues, or I get to share about my work with my colleagues, because I do a lot of work that my colleagues don't know about. And so it was really actually an opportunity for me to share what I'm doing with them. I think it would have felt more purposeful. And in the end, it did feel purposeful, right? I delivered it and it felt great. But leading up to that was stressful.
Yeah, like when you can find and tap into that deeper purpose in the process of the doing of the thing, we tend to feel the most stress rather than just like you've arrived at the finish line. And now we're like seeing the impact and seeing the purpose and connecting in real time with all of the buildup.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. That task, that process, it didn't change, but your relationship to it while you're still, feeling the deadline and feeling the heat maybe a little bit, that's the thing that changes. And this ties right back to what we talked about with the motivation mapping episode from a couple weeks ago, is when you're stuck in this should orientation or should language, again, we're relying on these extrinsic factors like the deadline or meeting someone else's expectation or, sort of parameters. And again, yes, it does work in the short term. It keeps things on track, but it can drain us and our energy. And when we shift to the get to, we're reframing it in the lens and in the orientation of intrinsic motivators like our purpose, our growth, alignment with values. And that is just such a renewable, energetic resource. And it's what sustains us when things get hard or feel like a little bit of a slog, and especially are more long term.
Kind of like what we said earlier, it sounds like the mapping exercise is kind of the bigger picture reflection, and the should to, get to, reframe is the micro practice.
Exactly. These truly complement each other. The mapping can help you see those patterns from a more macro level, and the reframing is really that real-time practice that can help you in a manner of just a couple seconds stay aligned in the moment and tap back into what truly is the purpose and the sustaining force behind all of the efforts.
Awesome. Well, I brought along a couple of questions that our listeners can reflect on as they try the practice. The first one is, what's one should that feels heavy in your work right now? It's really a great place to start. What feels heavy in your work right now that you're telling yourself you should do? How could you reframe it into an I get to that connects with your values? And then finally, when you make that shift, what happens to your energy or your sense of motivation?
I love those questions. Those are just so straightforward, but can really just, even in the span of a few minutes, by pausing on those questions, it can help shift the entire tone of our day.
Well, that's the practice for this week, the should to, get to reframe. We'd love to hear what you discover when you try it out. Email us at practicingconnection@oneop.org and share your reflections.
Also, if you would like a worksheet to guide this practice, check out the show notes. We have created a template where you can write your shoulds and reframe them as get-tos.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, click the share button in your podcast app and send it to a friend who might benefit. We'll be back next week with a new episode. Until then, keep practicing.
The Practicing Connection podcast is a production of OneOp and is supported by the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the Office of Military Family Readiness Policy, U.S. Department of Defense, under award number 2023-48770-41333.